What would you do if you were down to your last $5,000? Your company was hemorrhaging money and everyone was telling you to give up. Would you play it safe, or would you walk into a Las Vegas casino and bet it all? The answer's quite obvious, right? I don't think there's any reasonable reason for a normal person to ever go, oh, my last dollar, let me just go and bet it out when you're like very hungry and all. But that's exactly what Frederick Smith did in 1973, and today we know his company as FedEx. The thing is, this isn't just a story about luck. It's about something more powerful, mindset and actions. Welcome to the hidden playbook of the extraordinary 2%. The ones who don't just succeed, they revolutionize entire industries. Today, we're going to reveal 15 principles that separate them from everyone else. And no, this isn't about working harder or waking up at 4 a.m. This is about thinking differently, very differently. Way number 1. When everyone retreats, advance. When the 1973 oil crisis hit, every shipping company was scaling back. Fuel costs were skyrocketing. The smart money said to wait it out, but Fred Smith, he saw something everyone else missed. While his company was losing $1 million a month down to its last $5,000, he didn't retreat, he advanced. Yes, he really did take that money to Vegas, but not out of desperation. He knew something most people never grasp. The best time to revolutionize an industry is when everyone else is running for cover. That $5,000 became $27,000 at the blackjack table, making just enough for the next week's payroll. But here's what most people don't know. During that same crisis, while others were cutting costs, Smith completely redesigned FedEx's entire operation. He turned a potential death sentence into the foundation of modern logistics. Way number 2. Let your delusions drive you. I'm going to build electric cars that people actually want to drive, create reusable rockets, and colonize Mars. Imagine saying that in 2008 during the biggest financial crisis since the Great Depression. Most people would have called you crazy. They did call Elon Musk crazy, but here's what separates the extraordinary from everyone else. They let their delusions drive them. Musk had already sunk his entire PayPal fortune into Tesla and SpaceX. Both companies were on the brink of bankruptcy. His first 3 rocket launches had failed spectacularly. Tesla was bleeding money. He was going through a public divorce. The media was having a field day. But what did he do? He doubled down. He took out a loan to keep Tesla alive and prepared SpaceX's 4th launch, knowing it was probably their last shot. Most people would have cut their losses. Most people would have listened to the rational voices. But here's what most people don't understand. Way number 3. Understand that critics are protecting their own limitations. In 1998, a barista walked into 242 investor meetings with an idea. Americans would pay premium prices for coffee. 242 times, he heard the same response. Americans will never pay more than 50 cents for coffee. That barista was Howard Schultz, and today Starbucks is worth over $100 billion. The crucial lesson is, those investors weren't just wrong. They were protecting their own limitations. They couldn't imagine paying $5 for coffee, so they assumed no one else could either. This brings us to one of the most powerful principles of getting ahead. Way number 4. Turn your frustrations into multi-billion-dollar solutions. In 1997, Reed Hastings got hit with a $40 late fee for a copy of Apollo 13 at Blockbuster. Most people would have just paid the fee and complained to their friends. But Hastings asked himself a different question. What if there was a better way? That $40 frustration became Netflix. What's fascinating is, when Hastings pitched his DVD by mail idea to Blockbuster in 2000, they literally laughed him out of the room. Which brings us to way number 5. Never settle for your first breakthrough. Most people would have been content with revolutionizing how people rent movies. But Hastings saw something bigger. In 2007, when Netflix was dominating DVD by mail, he made a decision that seemed insane at the time. He decided to kill his own successful business model and bet everything on streaming. His shareholders thought he was crazy. Netflix's stock crashed. But Hastings understood something that 98% of people don't. Way number 6. The position you're protecting today could be your prison tomorrow. This wasn't just about movies anymore. This was about understanding how people would want to consume entertainment in the future. While Blockbuster was protecting their late fee revenue, Netflix was building the future. But perhaps no one demonstrates these principles better than a woman who started by cutting the feet off her pantyhose. Way number 7. True innovation comes from obsessive personal observation. Sara Blakely wasn't trying to build a billion-dollar company. She just wanted comfortable underwear that didn't show lines under her clothes. But instead of just complaining like most people, she did something different. She became obsessed with solving the problem. For 2 years, she visited countless fabric mills. She tested prototypes in bathroom stalls. She wrote her own patent application to save money. The fabric mills kept refusing her because they only dealt with men. But here's where she discovered something crucial that everyone else had missed. None of these mills were actually testing their products on real people. This brings us to way number 8. Question everything. Especially the, that's just how it's done. While everyone else in the industry accepted that certain things were just how it's done, Blakely kept asking, why? Why couldn't pantyhose be comfortable? Why did they always roll up? Why weren't they being tested on real people? This obsessive questioning led to Spanx, and Blakely became the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. Way number 9. Make reasonable people uncomfortable. In 2008, 2 guys had an idea. Let strangers pay to sleep in other strangers' homes. If you pitch this idea today, most reasonable people would call it crazy. That's exactly what happened to Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia. 7 investors rejected Airbnb. 1 wrote back, I don't think anyone will pay to sleep on someone else's couch. Today, Airbnb is worth more than Marriott and Hilton combined. The key insight is, if your idea doesn't make reasonable people uncomfortable, it's probably not big enough. Way number 10. Use public commitment as rocket fuel. In 2015, a relatively unknown entrepreneur named Andrew Houston stood on stage and made what seemed like an absurd declaration. He was going to challenge tech giants like Google and Microsoft in cloud storage. His company, Dropbox, would become the go-to platform for file sharing and collaboration. Industry experts laughed. Google was offering unlimited storage for free. Microsoft had billions in cash reserves. But Houston did something brilliant. He made his ambition public. He put himself in a position where retreating wasn't an option. Way number 11. Let rock bottom become your foundation. Here's a story that rarely gets told. In 2009, Jan Koum was living on food stamps in Mountain View, California. He'd applied to work at Facebook and got rejected. He tried getting jobs at Twitter, rejected again. Most people would see this as failure. But here's what separates the extraordinary 2%. They don't just face rejection, they let it fuel them. Koum noticed something while standing in line to get his food stamps. Everyone, no matter how poor, had a mobile phone, and they all wanted to stay connected. 5 years later, he sold WhatsApp to Facebook for $19 billion, to the same company that had rejected him. Way number 12. Master the art of strategic patience. This brings us to Kevin Systrom, who could have sold Instagram for $100 million in its first year. Everyone told him to take the money and run. But Systrom understood something crucial about getting ahead. Sometimes the hardest part isn't working hard, it's waiting long enough. 18 months later, he sold Instagram to Facebook for $1 billion. Today, it's worth over $100 billion. This wasn't luck. It was strategic patience. While everyone else was sprinting, Systrom was playing the long game. Way number 13. Turn your disadvantages into your edge. Richard Branson had dyslexia. So does Charles Schwab. And John Chambers, who built Cisco into a tech giant. But they all say the same thing. Their disability became their superpower. Branson couldn't read financial reports like others, so he developed an uncanny ability to simplify complex businesses into basic principles. He couldn't rely on written details, so he became a master of people reading and big-picture thinking. Virgin Group now owns over 400 companies, which brings us to one of the most powerful principles. Way number 14. Create value in the shadows. In 2008, while everyone was focused on Facebook and Twitter, a company called Stripe was quietly solving a problem nobody was talking about: how to make it easy for websites to accept payments. The Collison brothers, Patrick and John, were trying to create the next social media sensation. They were solving an unsexy, technical problem that was driving developers crazy. Today, Stripe processes hundreds of billions in payments annually. Why? Because they understood that real value often lives in the shadows, not in the spotlight. Way number 15. Master the art of reinvention. But perhaps the most powerful lesson comes from Bob Iger, who took over Disney when it was struggling in 2005. Everyone expected him to protect Disney's traditional animation business. Instead, he did something that seemed crazy at the time. He bought Pixar for $7.4 billion. Critics called it overpriced. Shareholders questioned his judgment. But Iger understood something fundamental about staying ahead. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings to birth your future. He followed this by buying Marvel, Lucasfilm, and eventually Fox, transforming Disney from a struggling animation company into the world's largest entertainment empire. Here's the truth about getting ahead of 98% of people. It's not about working harder than everyone else. It's not about being smarter. It's about thinking differently. It's about seeing opportunities where others see obstacles. It's about advancing when others retreat. Look at the stories we've covered today. A food stamp recipient creating a $19 billion company. A woman cutting up pantyhose becoming a billionaire. A $40 late fee sparking a revolution in how we consume entertainment. The real secret is probably the fact that none of these people started with extraordinary advantages. They just refused to think like ordinary people. What crazy idea have you been sitting on? What problem makes you angry enough to solve it? What limitation are you ready to turn into your edge? Because if one thing's for sure, it's that there's somewhere out there, someone looking at the same problem you are. The only difference is, they're about to do something about it. Will that someone be you? Thanks for watching.